Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you are brand new, I am very excited that you decided to join me here today for another speed build. And I am ecstatic to share this build with you all because I worked on it for probably about a full week, I want to say. And it is likely one of my favorite homes to date that I've built. Now, pretty much once a month, I build something that I'm just super proud of. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite build that I've ever done. But right now, genuinely, I think this is my favorite one. Now, this is a big home. There's definitely room for you guys to change up either some of the rooms to create either more bedrooms or just change things around in any way that you would like. I believe this is a 4-bedroom. Yeah, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home. Now there is a room that is kind of like a rec room. You could change that into a bedroom. And one of the bedrooms isn't customized. It's actually a guest bedroom that you could, of course, change up and personalize to your heart's content. But this is a pretty big home considering the amount of rooms and really just the size of the rooms. For example, the kitchen and the dining room are kind of huge. The living room's a pretty standard size, I guess, for living rooms that I tend to make, but I just really loved the entire look of this home. For the builds that I've done in Tartosa thus far, I've done a lot of like earthy tones for the exterior, but I really wanted to just have like a pure white exterior. That way I could complement, or not really complement, but I can make different colors pop. So I ended up using some of the flowers that kind of like that you can piece together from Jungle Adventure that look like they're growing up the sides. I used a bright purple. I thought it looked so pretty. And I was able to use this Jungle Adventure roof tile as well that kind of has some purplish hues to it, but still has the browns, and it still looks Mediterranean to me. Hopefully you guys agree. But the exterior is coming together at this point. I do make a few different changes up on that second story once I figured out the floor plan. Trying to find small enough windows that still matched the look that I was going for and would fit was a little bit difficult. And also we do change lots, I think 2 or 3 times. That was not part of the plan, but the house ended up being a lot bigger than I was anticipating. And I wanted a more grand entrance as well as a backyard that seemed to fit the house. Like, this is to me a very luxurious and huge house. My husband called it a mansion. However, I don't know if he has seen a lot of the actual mansions that people build in The Sims. Bless him. Anyway, I wanted there to be a more grand entrance, so I started to kind of flesh it out here, but then I realized that I really didn't have the room to create a backyard or anything that I wanted. So this, I think, is a 30 by 20 lot where we start, and I transition over to a 50 by 50, which was way too big. There might be some footage, I think, of me trying to work on that lot. It was huge. I knew I wanted there to be a small vineyard as well, which is why I went to such a big lot, but it was too big. Like, there was way too much room to play around with, and I was completely empty on different ideas aside from the vineyard to try to fill all that space. So we ended up going, I believe, to a 30 by 40 instead, which was a lot more feasible. You guys will also see me use the tool mod a ton in this build. I tried to go what I would consider all out because I really just wanted it to really measure up to what I was envisioning, and that meant that I had to use certain objects and change their sizes. I have said it multiple times at this point, but the tool mod, I mainly use it for scaling things. Every now and then I'll use it to like elevate certain things and whatnot. But yeah, I did use it a lot in this build. You're going to see a ton more of it onto the interior. I feel like I can't talk today. I'm stumbling over my words so much, so please forgive me. But now we're working on the landscaping, and I wanted to bring a lot of pink and green into the landscaping. I just thought it complemented things really nicely, and I wanted to use a few different like cacti and succulents, but I really just stuck with this agave plant, I believe is technically what it is. I think I talked about this plant in another build in Tartosa, and I still have not checked the actual name of it, so I'm just going to stick with what I called it. But yeah, this is kind of where we're about to move on to the 50 by 50 lot. Now, I'm just basically going to ask that you ignore most of it. I didn't cut it though, and there's a reason for that. It's because I like to show as much of the process as I can. Now, this video is definitely longer than some of my other videos. I try to keep them maybe to like about a half hour at most, but this build was just so big that I really didn't have a choice. But I did want to show the movement and kind of the process of figuring this whole lot out because it was so big. So here we are in the 50 by 50. This is me realizing, oh my gosh, what the heck have I gotten myself into? But I was going to give it an honest shot. I really thought I was going to be able to do it. So I start plucking out some fencing from the My Wedding Stories debug menu, as well as these shrubs from the base game debug menu. Just so grateful for the debug menu, especially with the My Wedding Stories game pack, because I think I talked about this in one of my other Tartosa builds. However, a lot of the build and buy assets are of course catered towards weddings. That's what this whole pack is about. But there really was not that, like, there weren't that many build and buy objects. You see me trying to correct my grammar there. There weren't that many objects for exteriors aside from windows, I feel. We got a couple more things that you can use, but there really just wasn't too much to put towards maybe like a family home. We got the windows that I used here, and we did get the other windows that would be great for like wedding chapels and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm still kind of struggling with using a lot of the items that came with that pack in a family home, for example, something like this. So I was toying around with making like a pond, trying to make a big garden area, because I believe the build that was here prior to me bulldozing it had like a huge back garden. It was so pretty. It was so symmetrical. It pleased me greatly. I don't recall which creator actually ended up making that lot, but it was really pretty, and it had a really pretty garden in the back, and I was like, maybe I can do something like that, but I don't know. I didn't have the mindset for it. Like, I really didn't think I could do it once I started to attempt to do it. I was also still toying around with the shape of the home because I wanted it to be a little bit bigger than it was when I had it on the 30 by 20 lot. This was a very lengthy process. That's all I'm going to say. But we don't spend too much time on this big 50 by 50. We do end up moving over to I think like I mentioned, the 40 by 30. Very, very soon. I was adding just a few more bump out pieces, trying to make the build look a little bit more balanced. And I didn't even keep the footage of me trying to make the vineyard out here because it took probably an hour, and I ended up not even keeping it or using it because we moved to the other lot. But I am just adding a few more windows here, sorting out the exterior, trying to figure out where certain things can go. And then we move on to the interior, which is when we have moved to the smaller lot. And this floor plan on the first floor was really, really challenging. Not because of the window placement, not because of how I was kind of trying to divide up the rooms, but yet again, because of where I needed to place the stairs. Like, there was no good place in my head to place them, and I ended up having to make a pretty big hallway area that I kind of didn't want. But the first room that we do work on is the kitchen, because I had a really good idea of what I wanted the kitchen and the dining room to look like specifically, and I loved using this base game kind of like stone tile flooring. I think it's technically just a stone flooring, but I don't use it very often. And I also use these base game counters and cabinets. Originally, I was going for this much lighter wood tone. I thought it looked really pretty, but once I grabbed these darker wood-toned bar stools, that was a mouthful, I decided to just go with the darker swatch, and I still think it looked really nice. I ended up having these 3 bar stools, and then there's also going to be a little breakfast nook and a full formal dining room. So there are a lot of places to just sit and eat food in this build. But I thought that that was really nice, and I think it really fit for a home that was this large. I also ended up using a wallpaper that I hadn't used before. However, it doesn't look like anything special. It just has kind of this terracotta trim at the bottom. That's kind of like a stone trim. I thought it was really pretty. And of course, the actual color of the wallpaper and the wood trim at the top, they're very neutral, which fit perfectly for the color scheme I was thinking of. I was originally going to try, because I've done this with my other Tartosa builds, I've gone very earthy on the interior, and I was going to try to go really light and airy inside here to match the exterior. But as I try to catch my breath, I enjoyed the color scheme far too much in the kitchen and little breakfast nook here to change it. So I ended up going with darker woods, which I really, really like. And I thought this little breakfast area was so cute. It's the only area with beams on the ceiling. Now, that might be a little bit odd, but it's really just because of the way the kitchen was laid out. Like, I couldn't do the beams the same way. And I also just used a stone accent wall in this little breakfast nook, which I didn't do anywhere else in the build. I just thought it looked a little bit more rustic, maybe on this side of the home, and then the other side is a little bit more formal. I don't know if that makes sense. It probably wouldn't be logical, but I liked how it looked. I also use a combination of cottage living lights. I use these here in the dining and kitchen, and I think in the dining room and kitchen. I think that's it. Maybe in the bathrooms too. But then I use kind of the fancier ones from cottage living in the rest of the home. And I realized that I don't often change up the overhead lights in an entire build, so that was kind of like new to me. I don't know if that really matters or if you guys even notice it, but it was kind of new to me. And here is going to be the formal dining room. I just loved how big it was, so I wanted to make sure that I, one, had enough space for like a full dining table, because that was really important. And I was going to try to use that big china cabinet thing from Cats and Dogs, but what I end up doing, and I will mention it when we actually start doing it, because I think I keep it on camera, is I make kind of a little bit of a fancy fireplace, and I used a trick from another creator, so I can't wait to show that to you. But first we clutter up the kitchen a little bit. I didn't go too overboard, at least for me. I don't feel like I went super overboard, but I of course wanted to make it lived in, but I wanted there to be enough counter space for maybe a sim or two to cook together. And I wanted those bar stool seats to be functional. I didn't want them to be blocked by a ton of clutter. So there are plenty of places for your sims to sit. And I was trying to come up with some different ways to combine maybe different objects or create new clutter items. So I tried using this little suitcase with a pile of books on top of it from Cats and Dogs to make it look like the cooking books were maybe just like tossed in the corner on the counter, but I didn't really like how it looked. So the first thing I did is actually cluttered up those little floating shelves, and that's when I realized I didn't really like it, and I ended up just putting a few more decorative items there. I don't think I actually ended up using any cookbooks or book clutter, but I can't remember. Maybe I did. Who knows? A lot of my kitchens can be the same, especially with the clutter, because I just love cluttering up kitchens and I'm just not super creative with combining different items. But I really liked how it came out, and I also, this drives me crazy, so I removed the walls to place that little towel there, and I ended up deleting the sink and the microwave. I don't know why it does that. It does it all the time. I know it's not necessarily a glitch, but it kind of drives me nuts. I also added a coffee maker here, and then I think I end up adding a rug over near the sink and the stove just to kind of give yourself a little bit of cushioning. And I would imagine if it was really cold, this tile or this stone would be very, very cold as well. So having a rug somewhere where you're standing sounded very nice to me. Again, using the tool mod to size up this little, I would say that that's more of like a welcome mat rug, and then we end up moving on to the dining room. Now again, I was going to try to use this cabinet because I never get to use it. I barely build with the medium wall height, but it looked a little bit too cramped and it made the table a bit off center once I added chairs to each end, because I wanted it to have every single available seat have a chair. Does that make sense? And then I also used the tool mod to change the size of these curtains and elevate them a little bit to cover the window, because it was kind of cutting through the curtain, which I didn't really enjoy. And I was trying to figure out how else to fill this room, which is kind of why I used that big cabinet in the first place, because it was so big. I didn't know how I was going to fill the space, but I end up coming up with something that I think worked. Again, using a trick from another creator, I ended up making kind of I'm not going to call it a custom fireplace, but I saw this, I saw Schnuck, I believe is how you pronounce it. Schnuck, who is an absolutely incredible stop motion builder, did this recently in one of their Tartosa builds. So I will definitely link their channel down below. And yeah, I thought it fit so nicely in this space. So I ended up using that little fireplace trick. And then I added some floating shelves, trying to toy around with a ton of them, just cluttering them up with books and trinkets and things. But then I thought that might be better suited to a living space. I also tried to put some ottomans or just like low-lying seating below them to make things look a little bit built in. I tried some cabinets and turning them around to make it look like a built-in unit, and I just really was not liking it whatsoever. I tried a ton of different things. I was really trying to be a little bit more creative with things, but I just didn't like how it looked. However, you, of course, are free to use any of these ideas if you want to try them, but I just didn't like how it looked here. So I ended up using, I think, 2 console tables, I want to say. I think it was 2 console tables from Cottage Living, the one that I have in the window to the left right now. I ended up using the darker wood-toned swatch, and I used 2 of them, so it still looked like a built-in unit. There's one on each side. I genuinely tried so many things. I actually tried some bookcases at one point as well, I think from Strangerville. I tried lowering them a little bit so they weren't as high on the wall. They just didn't fit the style, and I thought it was looking like a living space. So I ended up doing a ton of it off camera. You guys will end up seeing it in the screenshots, because then we move on to the living room, which I thought was very, very pretty. I loved the living space. I knew I wanted there to be a fireplace in here as well. I thought it would only be appropriate if there was one in the dining room as well as the living room. I tried a similar quote-unquote fireplace trick as I did in the dining room, but it didn't work with the fireplace that I selected. So I ended up choosing this one from Cats and Dogs. I thought it fit really nicely. And then I chose these sofas from Cottage Living, which is pretty much the exact same thing that I did in my last Tartosa build, but I tried to use a different swatch to kind of mix it up. I feel like there's only so many items in game that match a certain aesthetic or a certain style or look, so I ended up just using the same ones, and I was trying to sort out a color scheme, again, trying to incorporate maybe some earthy tones, but have some pops of color. So I thought that these rust-colored version of the sofas looked really nice, and I ended up creating this little custom coffee table with this base game coffee table or console table, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know, I thought it looked really pretty, but I think maybe the living room is almost a bit too orange. I would definitely be looking for feedback on that one, but I also added a few decorations on top of the mantle, similar to my last Tartosa build. I'm going to sound like a broken record, so I'm just going to stop saying that, but since I decorated the mantle with a leaning painting and a few candles, maybe a plant or something like that, there is no television in the living room. You could, of course, change that if you would like to. It would be simple enough to do that, without the tool mod or anything. You could just raise up one of the TVs that slots right to a console table. That would work perfectly. I've done that many time with this fireplace, so that would look really nice if you wanted some additional entertainment in this room. I just really liked it as a bit more of a formal space, and there's tons of seating. So again, if you have a larger family in here, or if your Sims live here and they just have a ton of guests over, you can all sit in the living room and chat, and it'd be really nice. Though I did struggle to kind of decorate the rest of the room. I wanted a few armchairs potentially, but it was starting to look a little bit too crowded with how I was originally placing them. So I do move one of the couches over and created some additional space for 2 armchairs and a little side table. I also, again, used some of the statues from the Romantic Garden stuff pack, as well as the Vampire game pack, because I just love the look that it adds to rooms and hallways and things. They're fantastic in hallways. That's what I'm going to say. There's one from the Vampire game pack in the big, large hallway that I really didn't like in this build where the stairs are, that I thought ended up making the space look pretty nice. There's also just a few other details that I add around this room, and I don't know, it just seemed like a very soft, calming space. And I always strive for that, so I thought it looked really nice. There's also a bookcase in here, though there are some additional bookcases throughout the build that are accessible as well. And this is where I decided to use the different overhead lights from Cottage Living just to fancy things up a little tiny bit. And even though there were children that I envisioned being a part of this family, I didn't put any toys in the living space or any toddler potties downstairs, which is something that I will try to remember to remedy prior to uploading this to the gallery. But here I am also using the tool mod to use these little, what are they called? Meditation stools to create couch cushions. I did this in a modern honeymoon rental that I did in Sulani, and I really liked it, and I was wondering if it was going to look nice on these couches, and I really think it does. It adds a lot more personality and kind of changes up the couches just enough for me. And here is a little half bathroom. I just felt like there needed to be at least one half bathroom and a full bathroom downstairs with how big the space was. It's kind of an awkward spot for it, but at the same time, I think it works, and there really is not much going on in here at all. I had a few decoration pieces, but not much. It is very plainly decorated all in all. And the next room that we decorate is the rec room. I'm calling it a rec room. It could be more of a study. There's just no door. It's an archway that's open to everything else. So I wasn't sure what to call it, maybe like a hobby room, but I ended up placing the grand piano, not the one from my wedding stories, because that had like plants kind of falling out of it, draped over the side, which is very, very pretty, but I think it's better suited to an outdoor setting. So I ended up using the one from base game, and I was trying to make this kind of an open office space, which I thought was a nice idea. I end up putting those bookcases back at some point, but I don't make it an actual office. I ended up putting one of these hanging plants in the corner, adding an armchair, and I think what I ended up doing, if my memory is serving me correctly, is I did try to make a little seating area, but I wasn't liking how it was looking, so I ended up using this foosball table. Nailed it. My memory is not as bad as I thought it was. I ended up putting a foosball table in here, and there is going to be a small seating area so a member of the family could sit and enjoy someone playing the piano. But I do add a window on this wall too, because it was just too much of blank space. I really just didn't like how it was looking, and I ended up getting rid of the flowers on the exterior of this side of the wall so I could add that window, and I thought it looked really nice. Then the tool mod and I struggled a little bit with trying to, what I was trying to do is I was trying to cover up some of the gold accents on this kind of like old-timey record player from Get Famous. I couldn't make it look nice, so I ended up just kind of bailing on that idea, and I don't think I even keep the record player. I end up ditching it altogether and just adding a little love seat, I want to say. But adding this window here was such a nice addition. I'm so glad I did it because the way that the light kind of pours in from that angle at a certain time of day is really, really beautiful. So I do add this little love seat. There's a little side table and just some more artwork. And then that's pretty much it for the rec room. I think we end up decorating this little hallway here with the stairs, and we add a leaning mirror from Jungle Adventure. I thought it looked really pretty. This statue from the Vampire Game Pack. And then I think there's like a spare dining chair and a console table with a few different decorations. Oh, and I used this rug that you can kind of piece together from the Vampire Game Pack as well. There's one that we got with Realm of Magic 2. It didn't come in swatches that I thought matched for this color scheme, but isn't that so pretty? The Vampire Game Pack, honestly, I think I said it before, but it is so underrated. It is such a good game pack. We got an entire occult. We got some amazing build and buy items that are so versatile for different styles. I'm just so thrilled every time I grab an object and I see that it's from that pack. The serotonin boost is pretty much immediate. But we are just decorating this console table here. I love that bouquet from the My Wedding Stories game pack. It's very beautiful, and I think I use it a few different times throughout this build, so just ignore if you see duplicates. I also added some artwork kind of leading up the stairs, and then we decorate this entryway, which was really big. I had no idea what to do with it, so you guessed it, everybody. We use another console table, and we get another mirror, because why would you not? Why would you not just get another mirror in some random place in the build? But I really wanted to make it look a little bit different. So as I was doing before with making some pieces of artwork lean on mantles and things, I decided to make that mirror leaning. And I also used the same mirror in one of the bathrooms. I think the one downstairs, not the half bath, the full bath that I end up making. But I think I turn it horizontally just to try to make it look like a different mirror. Now, I didn't know what to do here. So what I ended up doing is I was toying around with like, do I section the front and the back off and add some archways? I'm going to add some plants. I'll add some shoe clutter maybe and a coat rack. But what else do I possibly put here? I get artwork and things and sconces. They save lives, so I use a ton of those. But I think I end up grabbing a dining table technically, and I just use it as kind of an entryway table. And I put, I think, just flowers on it. Yeah, this same bouquet. So just ignore that. But I thought it looked really nice and it made the space look kind of fancy. And then this, now I don't remember where I saw this. I saw it floating around on Twitter at one point. So if you do know who originally kind of came up with this, please let me know. But I used these signs from Cats and Dogs and I created a headboard and a footboard, right? A headboard and a footboard for this bed to kind of make it fit the style a little bit more. That's the bed from Seasons. I thought it looked so nice. I had tried this in a build a long time ago, but I think I tried it on a bed that was on the second story, which obviously is not going to work because as you lower these into the ground, they're going to pop through the ceiling. So being able to use it here to just try to make this bedroom match the style a little bit more, I thought was so nice. I, again, don't remember where I saw it. It's been so long. So please, if you curated this idea, let me know because I want to give appropriate credit where it is due. I did not come up with this myself, but I was trying to clutter up this little ottoman at the end, this little trunk. I sunk it into the ground to hide kind of the console that was in it. And originally I was going to make this a teen bedroom. So you're going to see me start to reach for decorations for just kind of like a standard teen room. But I really didn't think that it was coming together nicely. I think with kids' rooms and teens' rooms, I am more willing to sacrifice the overall design of the home for those rooms in particular because that's where things can really get customized. And I think trying to mesh the style of this home with a teen theme, whatever that is, it just wasn't working for me. So I wanted to show the process because it was a bit of a struggle, but we end up making this a guest room, which I don't even show because the process took me a very long time. I also didn't show the footage of the downstairs full bathroom off of that guest room. You guys will see it in the screenshots, but we have moved on to the second story, which is where a majority of the bedrooms are. This is where the toddler room, the kid room, and the master bedroom are. Now, I was a bit uncomfortable because these rooms were so small compared to like the kitchen and the living room. All of those rooms were huge. The hallways are basically bigger than these bedrooms. But I thought it made sense for a home like this. I feel like the downstairs would be very grand and open and big because if you have company, that's where they're going to be. They're not going to be upstairs in the bedrooms. So I don't know. I kind of made the sacrifice. You could, of course, get rid of anything that you'd like. You can get rid of a bedroom and make one of them bigger. You can do whatever you'd like with this if you download it, but this is going to be the parents' bedroom, and I really liked it. I kind of went for more of like a rustic country feel, I suppose, at least with this bed from Cats and Dogs. Tried to fancy it up a little bit with this rug from Base Game and the side table lamp choices, but they do just have a little dresser in the corner over here and then some decorations on the walls and whatnot. There really isn't too much in here because it was such a small space, but I also wanted the master bedroom to have an ensuite bathroom. So that's kind of why I made the sacrifice for this room to be smaller, because you can see that the bathroom is pretty big, and for 2 Sims that would kind of be perfect. So there ends up being, again, I don't show the process of making that bathroom, but there's like a double sink, there's a shower tub combo, of course a toilet, and just some other decorative items to make it a pretty roomy bathroom. I also added some clutter to this dresser, and then we end up moving on to, I want to say, the child's bedroom. So I wasn't thinking of a particular gender or identity for the children whatsoever, but I was thinking that this child just really, really loved the color blue and was kind of fascinated with like robotics and science and chemistry and space, like all of those STEM related things, but also maybe a little bit, I'm going to go with STEAM. Maybe there's some art in there too. Yeah, we'll go with STEAM. I kind of like that, but this is where I threw the entire style of the build out the window because kids' rooms, like I mentioned, they should be customized in my opinion. They should fit the personality of the kid because this is where they really get to express themselves. The rest of the house might be pretty cohesive and put together, and they don't really get to make decisions on that. So the bedroom is where I went nuts with it. And this is me kind of toying around with the window situation like I mentioned earlier because I just really didn't like how it was so closed off. But I pulled out a ton of different decorative items. They have the little chemistry station here, which I barely get to use because it's so big. And you will never believe this, I was able to fit that little tent thing from, what's it called? Dream Home Decorator. Because there's one that has like little rocket ships and planets and everything on it. It's so freaking cute. I ended up sizing it down with the tool mod instead of just the shift bracket key. And when I tested it, my child sim was able to still get into it. I didn't test it with the toddler, but I'm assuming that if it works for a child sim, it'll likely work for the toddlers as well because they're smaller. But I thought it turned out so cute. This room is crazy cluttered, like posters everywhere. There's activities everywhere. I end up getting rid of that void critter thing because I just really couldn't fit it. But there's like toys and different like science projects. There's a little chair in the corner. We've got some awards hanging on the wall. There's toys cluttering up the dresser. There's a toy box. I mean, just everything that your kid would need is pretty much in this room. And I just loved how it came out because it was matchy, but still completely chaotic, which is what I'm kind of always going for in kids' rooms. Like more often than not. And I just add a few more clutter items here. I end up using the solar system overhead light. I thought that was really cute. And then this is going to be the toddler room, which was a bit smaller than I was anticipating. And there is just a white and pink theme in here. But again, it doesn't matter if you end up having little boy toddlers or little girl toddlers. This room, as always, like all of my rooms, unless I have a certain family dynamic in mind, all gender neutral. And I ended up adding this cute little rug from Base Game that I really, really, really like. And I did end up adding a few windows over these beds too, because it was kind of mirroring what I did at the front. It just took a little bit of toying around with it. The windows weren't exactly even. The roof kind of clipped over them on the exterior, but I really just said I don't care because I needed some more light in this room and to kind of balance it out. I originally tried to put a rocking chair here because I thought it was cute for a nursery. I often do that. But since toddlers and parents together can't interact with the rocking chair, I end up getting rid of it. I thought it was a little bit pointless. At least that's how I was feeling with this build. And what I ended up doing is I ended up kind of doing a little bit of a Montessori thing, I think. I don't know. But I added some shelves that were a little bit lower to the ground so the toddlers could theoretically get to them. And I add a few toddler books. Now I did use the tool mod to kind of like change a few of them and rotate them and whatnot. And I added some toys to the top shelf, which I believe were slotted so your toddlers could reach and take them. But I don't think the books will be accessible because I use the tool mod and move objects to be able to move them. So just be aware of that. But there are, again, plenty of bookshelves in this build for you to have toddler books in, and therefore your toddlers can go get them or the parents can read to the toddler, whatever whatever you want. And since it took me a long time to try to orient these books to make them look like they were leaning on the shelves and everything, I kind of cut most of that out and I ended up just moving on to some other decorations for the walls just to kind of make things look really cute and cozy. I feel like there wouldn't be a lot of personalized items in a toddler room just yet, so I wanted it to still look decorated, but maybe like, mom and dad did it, because obviously the toddlers didn't do it themselves. But that is pretty much it for the toddler room. I just add a few more decorative items on top of this little kind of, what is that? It's technically considered a wardrobe, but it's like a little cubby organizer. And then in this little teeny weeny hallway, I add an additional dresser, because why not? I also add another piece of artwork that I end up manipulating, that's the word I was looking for, to make it look like it was leaning on the top. And then at the top of the stairs, kind of in a little nook beside the door to the master bedroom, again, I don't show it on camera, but there's a family computer there, which I thought was really nice. And here we are in the backyard. I have laid out a pool. I've gotten some landscaping items out. Again, I wanted this to be a pretty luxurious backyard, but I didn't oversaturate it with a ton of activities. So I have the pool. I think there is a grill, an outside dining table. There's also a couple of, what are they called? Lounge chairs. That's the word I was looking for. Lounge chairs. And I brought out these debug fence pieces yet again from the My Wedding Stories game pack debug menu. Such a mouthful. And I liked kind of separating them with these shrubs too, by the way. I know I mentioned it in the front yard, but I just thought it looked really nice and made it a little bit more natural, I think. And then over here, now this is what I'm excited about, because the second I saw that the world was Tartosa, like what it was inspired by, which seemed to kind of be like Italy, Greece, maybe more Mediterranean areas. I'm not quite sure, so please tell me if I'm wrong. But I immediately was thinking like, I need a vineyard and I want to make like a really big wine vineyard or something at some point. But since I wanted to make one on the slot to begin with, I ended up making a little teeny tiny one. I used these debug posts and I end up using the wisteria from Cottage Living because it looks far more like grapes than the actual grapes do. Like the grape, what am I trying to say? The actual grape seed, like the grape plant that we have in game, like literally doesn't even look like grapes. The wisteria looks far more like grapes to me. So I ended up using these to make it look like a little bit of a vineyard, which I thought was so cute in this little area. Like they grow their own grapes. Maybe they make their own wine, though I didn't give them like wine barrels or a place to do that. That would probably be in a basement and stuff like that. But I thought it was cute. Or they supply grapes to a local vineyard or winemaker or something. Or they just like grapes. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But I did use the tool mod just to kind of rotate them a little bit. And then I ended up using this terrain paint to kind of flesh out the rest of this backyard area. But I will pretty much leave you guys here. I know this is a long one, so if you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this one, and I will catch you guys next time I post a video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!